The University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh Fox Cities campus assists the City of Menasha with video recordings of city meetings. Menasha residents and interested parties can get information about city meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the city website, www.cityofmenasha-wi.gov. To express opinions about City of Menasha issues or these broadcasts, contact the Mayor's Office, 920-967-3608. Contact the City Alderman. Contact information appears on the website. Or complete the electronic feedback form on the City website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.
Good evening. I'd like to call the City of Menasha Common Council budget session to order. If we could please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Alderman Hammond. Alderman Schmidt. Alderman Tom Grady. Alderman Ted Grady. Alderman Rapella. Alderman Nichols. Alderman Eisenach. Alderman Sevenik. All are present with the absence of Alderman Nichols.
So thank you all for coming tonight, and thank you for being patient. We've struggled a little bit to get the new budget books together. You'll notice a new format, hopefully that's much more readable than old formats. It's difficult for us old-timers who are used to the existing old format to try to find things in the new book, so be patient with us as well. But I do have just a little synopsis of what you'll see in the budget over the next couple nights that I want to start out with. And as always, I try to get some great pictures of our community, and this is a very nice picture that Jesse Smith actually went out of his way to put up his drone about 2 weeks ago to get some great pictures of Jefferson Park for us. So again, I'm starting out a little bit with the demographics. Menasha grew a little over 200 people in the past. It was okay on the back, but not the front. Over the past 2 years, and our demographics stayed pretty much the same, but you can see we're in an upward trend in population, and with some of the new multifamily projects coming forward, these numbers are not including that yet. So we'll continue to see some pretty rapid growth over the next few years. And our equalized value is also growing pretty rapidly. We're pretty much on the average with everyone else at about 11-12%. As you can see, Kaukauna, Appleton, Menasha, Fox Crossing. Neenah is kind of the odd one out this time. I'm not sure why they're lower, but we're in the pack with our equalized growth values. And we have a couple new members tonight, so I just wanted to kind of share a few budget basics as we go through this. Throughout the evening, if you want to make a motion to increase or decrease the budget, you can do that. I'd recommend if you're doing something that's major that the public may want to know about, we do that at the budget hearing sessions, so that if it's a major change in service and the public doesn't like that concept, either more or less, that they have a chance to respond to that. If you want to make a motion to do though, you need to make a motion for a specific line item. If you try to make a percentage increase or decrease for the police department, I don't know if you want me to give the chief a raise or if you want me to get rid of the CSO program or what that might be. So please tell us what that specific item dollar amount is so that we actually can know what your wishes are. I would like that you wouldn't make motions for departments that aren't here, so that the department head can comment and give you background information if there are questions as to what that motion may do. And then finally, we are $1,000 underneath our levy limit right now. So if you want to increase the budget more than $1,400, you're also going to have to decrease something else as well in order to do that. So any questions about those items tonight? No? Great. That was loud. Some brief financial status. Our general fund reserve continues to grow. The dark blue section is the undesignated portion of the fund. The light blue section is a section that is reserved for other uses, even though it isn't being used currently. So those are usually carryovers from a previous year. Sometimes they're negatives within our TIF districts. So we do have that $4 million in our general fund reserve, but some of that $4 million is reserved for other uses until those uses do have a chance to make up that difference. And we are at just about 12.5% of our budget being backed by undesignated general fund balances. So that's a pretty decent spot to be. We were smaller than that a few years back, and we want to continue to grow that. Probably almost to like 20-25% is a very stable number for all of us to be at. Our GO debt is about half of our capacity. That's a fairly healthy number. We could use to be slightly lower than that, but as you look throughout all the municipalities in the state, the amount of debt is growing because the levy limits are forcing municipalities to take out debt in order to get things done. And the only way that you can exceed the levy limits is to borrow for it and then pay it back with interest. So I'm not sure who thought up that bright idea to make things cost more, but that is pretty much the only way that we can accomplish a lot of goals right now. So we're pretty static at about $35 million in debt, though. Some budget details. Our levy limit is made up of two items, basically. One is net new construction, which was about 1.5%. Is Jen back there? I think, somewhere in that vicinity, correct? And then we got some additional for the closure of TIF 9. Okay. And then also, if you have a joint fire department or joint departments in general, you can exceed the levy limit by the amount that those departments increase as well. So we were able to increase our levy limit based upon having a joint fire department with NENA. We passed that resolution a month or two back, and NENA is also using that exemption. So we are down to, like I said, unused levy of about $1,400. And just so everyone knows, this was a particularly difficult budget just based upon the request. We actually rejected and removed requests of over $500,000 out of what you see tonight. So we've already went through this a couple times and did take out quite a bit of expenditures, and then we also had to move some of them into borrowing to meet those levy limits. Our revenues are increasing. There's a couple bright spots in the revenue. Basically, the health department had some significant increases with ARPA funding, and then our pilot for Menasha utilities and our highway aids went up fairly substantially. Our other revenues, especially shared revenue, which is our biggest revenue, has been stagnant for at least 10 years, and it's actually $300,000 or $400,000 less than it was when I became mayor back in 2009. Sure. So the question was about the Menasha Utilities pilot, and the payment for municipal services is our payment from the state for having a UW system or state-owned building within our community. And that number was, I think, $140,000 or $150,000 back in 2008, and it's continued to go down over the years. The Menasha Utilities pilot comes in two halves, and they're both fairly similar in size, about $700,000 each. One for the electric utility and one for the water utility. And we apply the electric utility pilot towards our debt service fund to help pay back for steam utility debt, and the water utility pilot goes into our general fund. It's directly above Menasha Utilities pilot. It's called Payment for Municipal Services. Sure. And just a little chart to show you that our levy has basically stayed pretty flat with inflation, and now you can see inflation starting to really jump. Our equalized tax rate has been a pretty good success story. We are growing as well as reducing our amount of levy per household. So our equalized tax rate has dropped from $10.50 down to $8.25. And I also want to show you the equalized tax rates for our neighbors. I think this is the first time that I know of in quite some time that our equalized rate is less than some of our neighbors. So we are under Kaukauna and Oshkosh's equalized rate. Equalized rate is basically your market value for your home. And then I shared this with some of you when I handed out the budgets. Our assessed rates are dramatically lower, and that's because our assessed rates and our equalized rates are pretty much on par with each other, where both Neenah and Appleton did not adjust their assessed rates this year. So their assessed rates are 10% or so below market value, which then increases your tax rate. So Oshkosh is at 0.71%, and I forget what the other ones were. I did write them down here. They are, these are just the city portions. So, yeah, I don't have those percentages on here right now. Nope, these are just city portions. And then I also want to highlight that we don't have refuse and recycling fees like other communities do, and our electric rates are also less expensive. So Menasha is becoming more and more an average place for taxes. And I just have a few highlights from the different departments, some of the things that we have done over the past years and that we're looking to do. Community development, this is a picture of Discovery Point Apartments, their lounge area by the Racine Street Bridge. As I think all of you know, we have a new code enforcement specialist, and she seems to be doing very well. She's having some great conversations that I can overhear as I'm sitting in my office as well. But I think another big kudo on Sam's head is that he sold the last lot at Lake Park Villas that we've been trying to sell for 20 years. So really good thing for him. Well, yes, I would agree. It's time to get rid of them. The things that we want to do, though, is continue to grow the city. We received a brownfield grant, and we want to continue to grow our neighborhoods and continue to maintain that affordable housing that we have within the community. Jen's been extremely busy this year, implementing the Transcendent property tax software and the cybersecurity and the new budgeting software. I haven't seen much of her lately because she's been working on so many software items, but we do want to continue working on accepting credit cards, and we are going to be working on a two-factor authentication for all of our IT in order to maintain our CIVMIC insurance. And we're going to do some upgrades to the city website this year as well. This is the family who owns Appleton Bike that just love our new trail. They come over here quite often on the Province Terrace Trail. Police Department, I'm going to kind of leave this for the team over here to do this since they're going to be up in a couple seconds. The Health Department has seen a lot more normal situation for this year, and next year they want to continue working on those accreditations and maintaining our accreditations, as well as increase some of the programming at the senior center that we're working towards. And we're having some great senior center bus trips too, the mystery trip next month. I have no clue where it is, they won't tell me. They had a great trip to Door County last month, and they've been really popular, the things that they've been working on. So the mayor and the common council, we've basically been working on growing the city and managing the budget. And next year, we're going to have to work on the sesquicentennial celebration that we'll be having in 2024. Public Works, we completed a couple more subdivisions and our streets, and they have a number of pretty dramatic things that they're working on next year, from the Oak Street Bridge to the different streets that we'll be working on, as well as the underground stormwater, and doing a little bit more paving out at PWF around the recycling area and some of the shop area behind. I think the big thing in Park and Rec is that 13% increase in our programming. Megan and Chloe have been doing just a fantastic job getting people interested in our program and signing up for our program, doing some creative things like partnering with PD for National Night Out, which was a pretty big success, and then partnering with some of our local businesses to provide some of those lessons. As you know, Arbor Day is a big thing for me, and we're our 40th anniversary next year, which we're going to be working on doing some fun things for that. But our big project's, of course, going to be Jefferson Park and the Lawson Canal. And welcome to Maggie. She's nervous tonight, so be nice to her. But she's been jumping in and doing a lot of great stuff for us already, working on a lot of our contracts and learning new things about the city as we move along. And she'll tell you a little bit about what she is working on along with HR tonight as well. Firefighters are really concentrating on training and retirements and making sure that we're ready to move forward as we have new people on board. And then we got some fairly substantial grants to do some good stuff within our stations this year. The library as well is seeing some pretty big increases in usage, and they've been working on their redesign for the interior of the building. We had a puzzle play session over there 2 weeks ago, I think, and attracted some attention, but their makerspace is really encouraging a lot of people that hadn't gone to the library before to come in and use some of the technology and do learning in a little different way with, they have green screens down there, they have video editing, they have basically MIDI routers and 3D printers. So there's all kinds of neat things that we can do within our makerspace as well. And hopefully by the end of next year, we'll be ready to start looking at how we redesign the space inside the library to make it more user-friendly for the things that people are doing in libraries today. And then here's the schedule, and that is it that I have for this evening, unless someone has any questions. If not, I will turn it over to the chief.
All right, whoa. I was told it had to be close to your face. Apparently not that close. Trying to get our thing to load here. Yeah, we'll play the video. I have clicker works. We are good. Well, welcome all. Here's our 2023 budget presentation. For the new folks, and just as a reminder, this is all but one of our members of our command staff, our leadership team. I know there are some kind of funny comments coming in here about who's watching the city. Well, there's officers that are out there, so everyone in the department is not here right now. But the reason why we do this is a couplefold. As we realize I'm not going to be here forever, and to make sure that our people on our leadership team have the experience of being able to present the budget and to know what's in the budget, we like to try to bring them all along. The other question that's been brought up in the past about how much this is costing, this isn't costing you anything, no one's here on overtime. I just have to buy them pizza. So I will take care of them, no worries. So with that, you're going to hear a lot from the various people in our group here today because we really want to give them an opportunity to be comfortable in explaining our budget and what we did this year and what we're doing going forward. So with that, what do? Well, the first thing we want to talk about is we've continued to use something that we call LEAD, which is listen, explain, equity, and dignity. We try to do that in every interaction that we have, both internally and in the community. And what that has showed us is a bunch. We're going to get into the crime stats in just in a minute. That's one of the reasons why our crime numbers are low. From the feedback that we've gotten from members of the community, they trust us. They will come to us for their issues and problems, and when we can be good on the front end of things, it really has a positive impact in the community going forward. The other thing it does is it builds that transparency and the trust. I do not believe we had any formal citizen complaints last year. We average probably about one every 3 years right now. And when I took over, prior to doing LEAD and doing a lot of the training and stuff we did before it was the neat thing to do, we averaged about 3 to 4 a year. So things have really changed in the community and changed with what we've done at the department. So things that you've heard about, like implicit bias and procedural justice, as a reminder, that's something we were training on before people even knew it as a buzzword. So what else is going on around here? Record low crime. Let me show you some stats here. There's a whole bunch of line bars and graphs and whatever might be a little bit difficult to see from here, but I can tell you we are the Menasha Blue. And this is the violent crime numbers. We saw pretty much across the board in most communities that around 2018, 2019, we saw an increase in violent crime. And we were no different here. You can see almost all the data points are kind of grouped together around 2019. These rates for each of the communities are based per thousand. So this isn't like by the number, it's how many crimes you have per thousand people. So it's adjusted. Obviously Appleton had more, but they have more of a population. Well, look what happened 2 years later. We are one of two communities that really showed a drop, as well as Kaukauna. When you see Appleton, Neenah, and Oshkosh, unfortunately, their numbers are continuing to trend up. And there's a variety of reasons for it. As I'll see with any of the crime numbers, this isn't just a police department thing. This is a community thing. Obviously, the support and some of the direction that we've provided the community helps. But we believe that the insightfulness of the school district in having the elementary SRO program, this is one of the reasons we're seeing the benefits here. We can pretty much show through our juvenile crime and how that has been decreasing substantially over the last several years, that when we're intervening early and getting those kids those services at an earlier age, they don't turn into problem people later on in life. So we believe that's part of it. We believe that the code enforcement and working with Todd Drew in the health department and community development to get rid of properties that are problem properties, it's really interesting. I could show you a couple of properties that we had all kinds of issues with, and once we got the property either taken down or removed, boom, everything in the neighborhood disappears. We don't have problems in Jefferson Park. It's just amazing how the perception and the reality are two completely different things. That's one of the messages that we're really trying to articulate with the community. The even neater one is property crime. So again, we're the blue line, and if you looked historically, 2011, 2012, 13, on a per thousand basis, we were up there. And the top line is Grand Chute. Obviously, they have the mall and a bazillion businesses, so they have an awful lot of property crime in Grand Chute. But you see ours, so we were up on the top there. Us and Oshkosh were at the highest rate per thousand. And now when you look at it in 2021, which is the latest numbers we have, and I can tell you the 2022 numbers are going to be very similar to these, if not even a little bit better. Look how the crime numbers have gone down since 2018 in Menasha for property crime. It's amazing. It's a, I believe, 60% decrease in the 10 years that you're looking at there. And the violent crime was a 40% decrease when we had that slide up. So this is really kind of one of the things that we can show you of the support that we've gotten over the years to be able to do the things that we wanted to do, but also those other programs and things that have really added into and shown the value add to the community going forward. One of the other ones, if you notice, Fox Crossing wasn't on the chart. Because of their name change over that 10-year period, their crime numbers are kind of a little more difficult to come across. So on this one here, the top one is 2 years ago. 2020 is kind of weird, just with COVID, but you would actually see similar numbers there. So the Fox Crossing is across the top. And then we're one line below it, so those are the 2019 numbers. So you can see, for example, larceny theft, I can barely see it, 133 or 173 for Fox Crossing, we had 218. Now look at the bottom chart for the same thing, we were exactly the same. Now these are not adjusted per thousand, these are actual crimes, but obviously Fox Crossing's population and ours is pretty close. But if you look at the numbers across the board, you can see how, where it's always been said that Fox Crossing was safer and didn't have as much crime. Well, now Menasha has kind of fallen into that same group as Fox Crossing, and we're very much on the same page as them. So really cool, fun things to celebrate and look at. I think it's a message that really needs to get out in the community as people are looking at where to live and raise a family.
One of our next accomplishments is within the next month, our command staff here will be participating in a leader exercise. Leader team is a group of volunteers who comprise of the law enforcement death response team. This is the team you do not want at your department. We pride ourselves on preparing for the worst day, but this is one thing that we have yet to do. So when you have an officer-involved death, they respond to every officer-involved death in the state of Wisconsin to help you through everything from death notifications, funeral preparation, media, family liaison. These are things we don't want to think about, but it's also our reality. So as a result of a partnership that we've made, as a result of a recent project with the Command College program, this is something that we will be handling here in the next 2 months. This will be the worst day that we are planning for, but we only have one chance to do it right by the family and by our coworkers, so we want to prepare for the worst.
And we're all finished. So the next part of the presentation was highlighting the traffic camera program we were able to finally deploy with the support of the group in front of us here. Money was allocated for this year, and we did deploy it at 3rd and Racine. I also had some sample videos to show you, but I don't know if we're going to be able to get them to play. We've had really good luck with them as a tool in our department for multiple different cases. This one, what you would see is the vehicle that's traveling south from the top of the screen. It stopped at a red light, thinks the light changes, but it doesn't, and T-bones a westbound vehicle. The next video we had is hit and run, where eastbound video is, the eastbound video is going to proceed through the intersection, and a westbound vehicle turns to head southbound. What was interesting about this one is you could see the striking vehicle then flee the scene, and with the LPR technology at this intersection as part of this system, it captured the plate, and officers were able to find the suspect vehicle abandoned just a couple blocks away. This is one of the areas that did not make it in the budget for next year. We were hoping to expand the traffic camera network to 1, maybe 2 intersections, depending on pricing. However, in trying to make the budget fit and make the numbers work, that was one of the areas that was not successful in having money allocated. One of the other systems we were able to deploy or test was the flock camera, and I'll let Lieutenant Thorne kind of go over that. But this, when we were looking at the traffic camera network and presented it to this group, if you remember, we were looking at 2 different directions. One was the overview style that we put up at 3rd and Racine, and then there was also a LPR, or specific LPR technology, which is flock. We were able to test out a couple of those cameras at no cost to the city, and what we found this year is that is an invaluable tool. A lot of neighboring agencies have also deployed them, but we were also able to use those in conjunction with the traffic camera network. What one of our investigators did, and that's the middle case study, the multi-jurisdictional fraud ring. There was a group of people committing some acts of fraud throughout the state, and we think also nationally, that with the traffic video at Third and Racine, they were able to follow the video, or follow the car, get some video from nearby businesses, found out that the suspect was switching plates, and then also used the flock camera to get the registration in a different city, and really develop some significant investigative leads for a fairly large case that's still ongoing. So I'll let Lieutenant Thorne continue with the flock system.
As Lieutenant Albrecht had said, earlier this year we had implemented the cameras mid-July, mid to late July, and one of the significant cases that we had within the first few weeks was we had a delayed report of what came out as an attempted child abduction. And not to get too much into the specifics of it, but it involved a misunderstanding where a vehicle pulled alongside a child, and the driver then later sped off. And within us being notified of the incident, we identified the vehicle within a half an hour to an hour, and then later made a traffic stop on the vehicle, and it was a complete misunderstanding. So from the social media side of things, the importance of these cameras is we were able to get on top of that and let the public know it didn't happen in our city, everybody's safe. We've also had numerous other cases where we've used flock cameras identifying stolen vehicles in our city that otherwise probably wouldn't have been found. Additionally, as Lieutenant Albrecht had mentioned, area agencies are able to use our cameras and we're able to use theirs. This is a nationwide system where it's really fantastic, and we want to continue using it. So. The last feature I just want to speak about the cameras is they have hot lists. So what that refers to is we're able to implement certain data such as stolen vehicles, amber alerts, silver alerts into the program. That's done so automatically. So when there is any of those that come up, our officers are notified of it and we're able to act on it very prompt.
Hear me? Oh. So anyways, Chief, you know that I've been pushing this for several years now, and even went before the Police Commission a year ago, asked for their support on this. The mayor finally supported me also on this. It was also my goal that we at least have one more camera for this year, preferably at 3rd and De Pere Street. If not there, then out by the Quick Trip on 47 and Midway Road. So anyways, I am so pleased to hear what you guys just told me, especially Nick mentioning the fact that the social media situation where someone is accused of something and then it can be verified that this was a mistake. And that instead of people going all goofy on the internet and everything, and then maybe even ruining someone's life through social media, that I never thought of that aspect of it, so that's interesting. But so, Chief, you did budget for this for 2000 and...
Yeah, so what's in the budget is not to expand the intersection cameras, that got cut. What is in there is to maintaining about half the flock cameras that we have.
Okay.
So there's about 13 of them that we have scheduled. A number of them aren't up right now. They're still going through DOT permitting, and we'd be able to keep about half of those. So what's been nice about that is we're really kind of seeing which ones give us the biggest bang for our buck. Like 9th and Racine has been, we get hits on that one all the time, and yeah.
Well, that was part of the reason why I wanted to take baby steps with this, because of technology, how it is, and that maybe down the road we'd find out, oh, why did we buy that system when there's this upgraded system? So I like your approach, but I would very much appreciate it if the department take that serious. I think it's very, very important. I'm going to continue to push for that as long as I'm here and even if I'm not here, so.
Yeah, we agree. The two intersections that we were looking at for next year were exactly the two you just mentioned. And, you know, we'll still, I don't want to speak for these guys, but I'm quite certain they will continue to look for other grant opportunities and other things as well to
That was my
fund
last
these.
question. Are you looking at grant?
We did. One of the ones that was specific to it, we found that we did not get, but we'll continue looking at it and different opportunities going forward.
All right, thank you. And I appreciate the comments. I mean, that opened my eyes up. And if my colleagues haven't been to the police department recently, they have the big screens up where you actually can see that being recorded and the action taking place at 3rd and Racine.
So I'm assuming we'll probably take a break after the PD one. I have the videos, they do work on my computer and everywhere else, so I'll show those to you if we can get them up on the screen. It's pretty neat, seeing it firsthand. Looks really cool on this one too.
So to Alderman Sevenick's comments, we did have the flock cameras and the other two cameras in the budget. We were trying to keep our borrowing under $3 million. So I just moved the other two cameras to next year's capital program. We didn't completely take them out, and hopefully we'll be able to continue expanding that system. I hope that we can also use the cameras on the two bridges a little bit more with the upgrades that DOT's put in now. In the past, we actually had to physically go out there and try to collect that data. Hopefully we'll be able to get that into our server in the future so that the PD would have more usefulness out of that as well.
Another accomplishment we had this year was continuing employee development. A new program that two of our lieutenants here, Lieutenant Schultz and Lieutenant Spiegel, attended is LPO. We're not only looking to assist lieutenants, but also our OICs with continued career development. As Chief mentioned, he's not going to be here forever. We only have him for less than 2 months. But we need to really focus on our younger staff. We have a younger department, and we want to prepare them for these positions as there are vacancies, and LPO is another new program that we haven't participated in, so we wanted to highlight that. We're looking for other leadership programs as well as other under training to work on the future.
So with LPO, I actually just graduated last Friday from the school. It's a 3-week course, leadership in police organization. Phenomenal course, completely opens your eyes to being a better leader, being a better teammate. And I've already come back with ideas with Lieutenant Spiegel, been bouncing those off from him, and it's just an invaluable resource that hopefully we can send all the other lieutenants to as well.
One of the other accomplishments that we really drove home this year was increasing our community engagement, especially after COVID. Two notable things that we really strove to complete this year was completing Faith in Blue, which one of our probationary officers had that as his probationary project. So we partnered with Appleton Pentecostal Church recently and sat in with their congregation. It was a really fantastic opportunity to really bridge that gap with inclusion and networking within our community. The other community engagement project that we had was we had our first National Night Out. And with that, we had Touch a Truck, we had raffles, we had demonstrations for our youth. Two of our officers put on a self-defense class for kids. And then we had a smattering of other ones where two of our officers had completed CPR classes for the Boys and Girls Club and the high school, as well as Shop with a Cop and some of our other programs this year. There was a period of time just based on implementation of a new community liaison officer where we had some decrease in our social media accounting. And since we now have implemented a new officer into that program or that role, we're continuing to bridge that and increase that.
The only thing I'll add on the National Night Out, that was the first time we ever did it. And a couple of you have attended. It was fantastic. We were hoping maybe 25, 50 people would show up. We ended up having about 300 to 400. And the feedback that we got from those that attended was just such a motivator. But what was really cool is how our officers, you get into your routine. As all of you have jobs throughout your lives, you do the same thing kind of day in, day out. So does the patrol officer. But for them actually to intermix and to have this opportunity of people that really wanted to learn more about the job and what they did was absolutely fantastic. Everyone was just kind of on cloud nine through the whole thing. And I'm certain that it'll be something that you'll see again next year. So just big hats off to the community that came out to it and our folks that participated.
The other thing that had a huge impact on the Appleton Pentecostal was your involvement with them. So about 2 weeks after you guys were there, I was there, and they could not stop talking about how fantastic our police department was. And this is probably a largely African-American parish, and that night they had people from all over the state here to celebrate. I forget exactly, they were joining some larger unit of the church, and they talked extensively about their experiences with the PD and how different it was with our PD compared to others that they've been to in the past. So kudos to you for doing that as well.
Maintain full staffing. I want to jump up for joy when I announce this because we are one agency was fully staffed, and I don't want to admit it when I'm around other agencies because they want to hit me. We are very lucky to be fully staffed. Many agencies around us are anywhere from 3 to 8 officers short. We actually are a +1 right now. We have 2 officers in the academy. This is very rare and uncommon. Our neighboring agencies are being forced to work overtime, getting called in on their days off just to cover minimum staffing. So while we are here overjoyed and celebrating that we are fully staffed, that's something that I want to admit to the other agencies, but it's quite the accomplishment. Over the 21 years that I've been here, I think this is our 3rd time being fully staffed. So very rare, very exciting for us, but we're going to continue moving forward to maintain that full staffing. Part of the reason why I think we're fully staffed is we updated our hiring processes, which brings me to the next point on the slide. We're always looking to improve our processes, find ways to be more efficient. Some things that changed with our applicants is they were constantly reminding us that we can't attend each step on different dates. What can you do? So we moved to a 1-day hiring process. It's a long day for all of us, all day, all night, but that allows our applicants to only have to take 1 day off of work or a day off of school, and they go through everything. Then we do the behind-the-scenes background and so on and so forth. But we have coordinated many, many schedules to make this work, and the feedback has been phenomenal. And they're telling their friends, and they're telling other students at school as well. The feedback was amazing and said, we are the only department that can make it work in 1 day. They're having to lose money by taking off time of work to come. So I think that is a fantastic thing to say about our group here who is willing to put in those long hours. This allows us to get the better applicants instead of long drawn-out processes. So 2 great accomplishments so far in 2022, and we plan to do the same thing in 23.
The other thing to add about staffing really quick is, as you know, there's been a negative narrative over the last couple of years with law enforcement countrywide. And different elected officials haven't necessarily been the most supportive on a state and national level. I want you to know that you also play a role in that. You can either be positive or negative. Sometimes members of the council have referred to officers as Barney Fife for having bad cops or things like that. Understand that that resonates with our folks. And we all share in a role of selling the city as positive as possible and trying to do the things. We make mistakes, I get it. And if we do, we'll own up to it. And I'm quite certain that the team that we have here will listen to your concerns and address them in the future. But whatever we can do to try to have this be a place that you want to work, and an exciting place, in that you clearly have supported so many of initiatives that we've done over the last several years financially, and there's also been a lot of very positive comments in this body. So I just ask for your support, continuing not only financially, but verbally, and talking about the positive things that the department does do. It really, our folks listen to that, they hear it, and it really goes a long way to them. So appreciate the positive things, and if we can maintain and focus on those, that would be fantastic.
The next accomplishment we'd like to, I guess, bring to your attention is the transition to the TASER 7. Last year, this was a topic that was debated, but funds were approved, and we did complete that transition. Our staff is able to use that new tool every day. While we haven't had a deployment of it, I will say we've had multiple displays. One of the neat features of this new TASER is it has, I guess, additional sighting optics and dot displays. So with our de-escalation tools that we use, we're able to display the TASER and use it as a warning tool and not have to rise to that next level of force. I think that also is part of our LEAD initiative, where we're able to use our de-escalation techniques and our verbalization, along with some of these tools that you've supported, and gain compliance from people without actually having to use that higher level of force. So that was a significant accomplishment we were able to take care of.
The red dot optics, I know we've talked about this for a couple years, and this year we're able to find a really good course for three of our instructors to go to teach the red dot optics for our handguns. The course was a really good course that was put on by somebody that actually is on a subcommittee for the state, so they'll have some insight on when the state rolls out a program for it. So the big benefits that we saw with the red dot optics is that it makes kind of a bad shooter into a good shooter and an average shooter into a great shooter. We obviously want those things when deadly force is needed, that we want that increase in accuracy. We need to be accountable for everything that we do. The other added benefit is that when you have a regular sight on a gun, you're focusing in on the back and front sight, which you're not focusing it on the actual threat. So the person that is displaying a threat could suddenly drop that weapon, or something could change, and since you're focused on those sights, you're not going to be able to particularly pick that up very fast. With the red dots, you're actually looking at the subject, and the red dot kind of appears. You're not focusing in on it. So these benefits are awesome with these red dot optics, and it's kind of what every agency is going or looking forward to. And we've written it into policy, so we're looking into 2023 with getting more officers carrying it. Currently, we have 3 officers that carry it, and those are the ones that went to the school.
Chief, you might be able to answer this too, Nick or Adam, but when I took Maggie around to visit you, you talked a little bit about our training in the range and how that prepares our officers to be much more confident with their weapons and hopefully much less likely to use them. And I found that very interesting, that the increased training and the repetition of that training actually made for a much safer department. And I don't know if any of you have comments.
Yeah, I think that the really awesome thing that we're able to have is that range. It's a lot more difficult when you have to set up a bunch of people to go to an outside range or try to coordinate to get people somewhere. So we do a lot of training on the range. We do a lot of threat, no threat. So officers need to identify that something is a threat or not a threat and make a split-second decision. And when we're in a controlled environment, it's a lot easier for us to, if there is issues, correct that issue and continue to go forward with training so that we have, less use of a firearm if that would happen to occur on the streets with an officer. So, yeah, absolutely, it's super beneficial that we have that range and having that force and or that no threat training.
This year, we hosted or completed 2 in-service type style trainings at our police department. One was earlier this year, and the next will be coming up here in December. The notable things, particularly with the second in-house training that we're going to be doing, is in regards to crime scene processing. So our goal is to ensure that all of our officers are trained up to the standards and exceed those standards put out by the state. Earlier this year, we actually partnered with the State Crime Lab, where we had their evidence technician folks come and meet with all of our evidence collection, all of our evidence processing people, and we completed a crime scene evidence collection course at HECROT. It was a fantastic opportunity for our officers to grow and learn some new tricks of the trade. So.
The next thing we were hoping to do was continue our transition to hybrid squad cars, but with supply chain issues, we are unsure when we're going to be able to get our next shipment of squad cars. Our plan is to continue to use those. As you'll see, I think coming up in some of the gasoline numbers, we are trending down in our usage. The cost of gasoline hasn't gone down, but our usage is trending down. And our plan is to continue to move towards those. This is one of the areas that the cost of these were transitioned to borrowing this year. So you can see that as in a change from past years. And we also finalized our tire test. Traditionally, we have 2 different styles of tires that we use in warm weather and cold weather. Firestone came out with a new tire that meets our needs for both temperatures and climates. So we're able to do that, which saves us labor and the time to switch them out every season. So.
We've continued to expand the footprint of the wellness program. It's been almost 2 full years with our first ever wellness program at the PD, and the energy and the excitement of the program continues to grow along with the participation. How many of you, don't raise your hands, are 57 or older? If you would have raised your hand, you already surpass the life expectancy of an officer. Our average age before we die is 57 because of the job, which is very depressing, and that was one of the motivators for me to research and gain Tim's support when I brought forth a wellness program as a result of the Command College project. As the main recruiter for our department, I didn't know how I could recruit a young 20-year-old to say, come work for us, donate your career of 30 plus years, and I will more than likely guarantee you're going to be dead at 57. So with the wellness program and the support of all of you, we've been doing wonderful things over the last 2 years, and I could probably talk for an hour on this, so I'm going to try and make it short. But we focused on financial health, physical health, and mental health, and done a variety of things in all 3 of them. Going along the lines of the average age of 57 years old, offering calcium scoring to every member of the department. You don't know when it's your time, but we want to prepare them for when they can start working towards a healthier individual. Financial health, one of our, we've had many accomplishments, but one of the goals, as I mentioned earlier with the leader team, we need to prepare for the worst day ever in our department. And one of that with financial health is making sure that these officers have wills that are up to date. So when we are prepared for that worst day, that's not the last thing that's going to be a hang up. Again, I could go on and on, but I want to thank you for your support 2 years ago when we adopted this program, and it continues to grow. If you ever want to know more information, I would be happy to explain what we've done in more detail, but I know we only have so much time tonight.
All right, sit down numbers, that's what we're here for, right? So how do we do for 2022? We're projecting to be about $25,000 under budget. If you actually looked at our budget, it might show that we're showing over, but we'll go into a reason why for that. It has to do with grant funds that we've received or will be receiving. So when you think about a roughly $5 million budget, that's less than 1%, about 0.5% to do that. So we certainly have tried to be good stewards of the money. And some of the stuff too is sort of goofy things like the first one, which is wages, which we're showing over budget, but we're kind of not.
We're showing that we're $10,000 over. However, if you've been in a rear parking lot, we have a new parking lot, but those wages came out of our budget rather than Public Works. So if you refer to their budget, they will be under. Moving forward in a few slides from now, you'll see that a new line was created. So you won't see this over under. It'll be more accurate in years moving forward. Salaries, under budget, 40,000. We did have 2 officers leave in April and May of this year. We've hired 2 additional officers to replace them. However, they're at a lower salary, actually a cadet wage, and they're in the academy right now, graduating December 16th. Overtime, 5,000 under budget at what we're projecting, but with overtime, and we'll talk about that a little later in the slide, it can change tomorrow, you never know, with a critical incident or a variety of other reasons. Health, also 6,000 under budget. Last year at this time, our health insurance elections were not completed prior to the budget, therefore we did an estimation. Moving forward, it'll be more accurate.
So with FICA and retirement, we're also trending down and to be under budget for this year, mainly with FICA, since salaries were down, that's down. Retirement is down with the vacancies we had for a short time this year, and with the 2 officers in the academy who we don't have to contribute to retirement, that ends up with that reduction. Grant equipment, that's going to look like we went on a spending spree. However, a lot of that will be offset by the revenue section. That is kind of accounted for the body-worn camera grant we received to replace our current system, and then the Governor Evers money that was spent is kind of listed in that account. Fuel, due to the rise in the cost in fuel, we are going to be over budget. Last year when we were doing the budget, gasoline was substantially cheaper, and this year when it went up, even though we have 2 of the hybrids deployed, the cost far exceeded what we budgeted. So we're hopeful that gas will trend down, but you'll see an increase in our request for next year in this account. Oh, sure. So in years past, the grant equipment was always purchased under the 3015 account. So at the end of the year, oftentimes that account would be over and then offset by the income accounts or revenue accounts. So now this specific line for grant equipment was put in the budget so that that can be better associated with the revenue section.
Auxiliary unit trending down about $5,000 this year, primarily due to a little bit of a decrease in staffing as well as events. Our CSO program is $2,000 under budget this year. However, on average, in comparison to other years, it's about where it has been. Our crossing guard budget is about $4,000 under budget. That is, we're seeing challenges in terms of retaining some staff, so we might be exploring some other measures in terms of how we're going to recruit and retain people this year. Our jail charges is about $3,500 under budget. That's primarily due to when we looked at COVID or when COVID happened, some of our local jails weren't actually even accepting inmates. So we had some limitations in terms of that. And animal charges, $500 under budget this year. That's historically been trending downward, and I'll discuss that a little bit further on in a couple more slides.
So 2023 budget, what's in it? Well, before we talk about what's in it, let's talk about what's not in it. We already talked about the intersection camera expansion. That's been pushed to next year. But we'll be there. And then I do it tongue-in-cheek, but I do want this on the radar screen about a new police department building. Certainly it won't be when I'm around, but when you look at our building, all of these buildings here have either had a major remodel, have moved to a new facility, or are actually on their second remodel in the time that we've been in our building. This isn't just well, everyone's got a shiny car, so I want a shiny car. There's a number of things with the building that are just not appropriate in the way that police departments are run in the current environment. A lot of safety features, there's things with interview rooms, the way records are kept. We're doing as well as we can, and again, we appreciate the support of the things that have gone on. We understand that this is going to be something 5 or 10 years in the future, but we want to just kind of put that thing on. The Public Works facility took a decade before we were able to do that. So we're kind of like being the Public Works facility. We'll take it a decade early, and maybe 10 years from now we can actually do it. One of the things that's in the 2025 budget is fencing for the back parking lot. If you look at any of the urbanized police departments, there is now fencing for the back police department. We don't have anything like that. You can just walk into our back lot at any point. We have about $1 million worth of equipment. I can tell you that my personal vehicle had been damaged since the time I've been there. I can tell you that squad cars have been damaged over the years, and we like to use a term that Lexipol, a risk management company, used, that if it's predictable, it's preventable. We know that these things happen. It's happened 2 years ago at Appleton's Police Department. From a show of hands, how many times have we had someone in our back parking lot in the last month? Every day. What's that? Well, that's actually something we have to change with the signage to the back parking lot. Back parking lot is not a place where the public's allowed. Our signage doesn't meet the requirements to do that, but we will be changing the signage to that. But signage isn't going to help a person that's intent about causing harm to a police officer. So it is something that I'm putting out there for you folks. Don't be surprised if something happens to a vehicle or a person. This is a need that is going to have to be addressed. Everyone either has fencing or indoor parking at this point, for the most part. Fox Crossing doesn't, but they're obviously a little more rural. They're not sitting with the residents literally 5 feet off the property line. Green Bay is the other one that didn't. They actually had money in the budget, and the previous chief thought that it looked too community unfriendly. Then the civil unrest happened, and they did the why didn't we do this? And now their current chief is behind the 8 ball trying to get it done. But the cost went up substantially since when they budgeted it. So when we're looking at budgets, just kind of as comparison to others, this is just kind of a snapshot of what we're going up. And I didn't feel that it was fair to not put the vehicles in if we're planning on borrowing for the vehicles this year, which we traditionally haven't done, but just kind of where we're sitting with the other agencies or the other departments in the city. One of the big reasons for this is the union contract. And while there's a larger increase for the non-sworn folks and non-represented folks, the union will only get a 1% raise next year. That's by contract. So there are definitely years that the union did better than the non-reps did. And this is unfortunately one of the years that they're going to not do as well as what the others did. So the budgets over the year, just to kind of point out this, and I say this just because, the mayor and I have had the conversation, we've kind of pulled all the rabbits out of the hat. And going forward, when I look at the budget from 2012 versus 2022, or now that should be 2023 actually, 12 years of budgets, we've been averaging about 2% per year. We know that the wages have gone up about 27% in that period of time. We also added 2 positions, which show in the budget, you don't see the offset, that are paid for by the school district, 75%. So we have literally tried to figure every little avenue to keep costs down and be cost effective over the last decade. But going forward, seeing a 2% increase in the police department, I think is going to be very, very challenging to do. So items in borrowing. Police vehicles, we had kind of mentioned that one, that we usually just have that out of the general fund, but as the mayor explained, there's just literally no way to do it the way the state has the system set up for, so that is in borrowing. The police radios, that's the second half of the radio project. We did the first half, the portables, the one the officers carry on them already. So this is the second half, and you'll see from the fire department when they talk with you, same scenario. We're to the point where the radios need to be replaced. They still work, but that's, if you do it now, they are projecting about another 10 years on the system, so you want to get the biggest bang for your buck for going to it, because I imagine it'll be a completely different system in 10 more years when the whole backbone of the system gets changed. The front office and interview room, we'll talk about that when we get into our goals for next year. And then, again, aging building, we have a sewer lateral issue. They've tried relining the pipes, I believe is the term, and that hasn't worked, so they have to do additional work to it to avoid waste backup, which takes place at the department. So what are we doing next year? Again, that lead, that's something that the group's going to continue. We'll obviously have a new police chief, so we didn't know and or want to commit that chief to a series of goals. We know that these things that we have up here are things that we will do as a department, but the new boss that comes in here may have some additional ideas, and hopefully has new ideas and goals and visions for the department to really kind of take it to the next level. So doing that transition and really kind of embracing that person in what their direction is for the department is going to be something that group will be working on.
We also want to continue cross-training our front desk staff to include traffic records as well as our contact. We've been doing that now for over a year, and it has had great success. We are eliminating any inefficiencies, or if someone is sick or on vacation, production does not stop. So we've had some new hires here recently. This also goes hand in hand with some of a process that we're experimenting with reallocating staff. But with that, as Tim mentioned, with the project in borrowing, we don't have any place for them because the layout of the building, staff is in too many different positions, which is the opposite, and we'll go into it a little bit later, but continuing to cross-train so we are more efficient. With the remodel project for up front, especially the front desk area, we have experimented with our current traffic position to work not only traffic but ComTech. When we have overlapping staff due to call volume and everything else, we have no place for them. When you enter the sheriff's department or any other local PD around here, you see a big space like this that's broken up into numerous cubicles, different desk space. We don't have that. We have two. So it's very inefficient when records and traffic are trying to work together and they're many rooms apart. It's just very, very inefficient in the amount of time each day, day after day, this occurs. By allowing everyone to come together, we can create more workspaces by taking down a couple of walls, and the performance of all of them will improve once they're all together. We are the only PD I know of that has everyone separated too far apart. I'll jump ahead to the schedule program so we don't have to keep shuffling the mic. One of our goals, currently we use a program called AladTech. It's also a program used by many other agencies here in Northeast Wisconsin. It was the best thing at the time, but after working in it day in and day out, it's not the best tool. So definitely want to research and explore. We have 3 programs right now we're looking into to help take away some of the workload, things that will run automatically, but then also something that'll work with payroll. Again, free up more time for me as well as our admin assistant, and something a little more user-friendly for the officers, and also looking something more cost-effective.
So I guess the few I have on here, we'll start at the bottom. We're going to restart the Explorers program. This we had in place for a while. COVID hit, that created some hurdles. We now have an officer who has an experience in the program. That was part of her probationary project. we're looking to have her actively restart that program. It's a great program to have. It allows us to build those relationships with some of the younger population. It's also a great way to get people interested in law enforcement. I know as Deputy Chief Hanchek has said, we're lucky to be fully staffed, but we're not going to have everybody forever. So being able to funnel some of those people and get them some experience, and also hopefully show the department off to them, and maybe make them want to work for us down the road. We hope to roll out more of the optics on the officers' handguns. We're hoping to do this, or our plan is to do it slowly and slowly transition it. That's going to greatly reduce the effects on the budget. If we were to do it kind of a one and done, it would be extremely expensive. So this will be a transitional, slow process. And then also the building reconfiguration, like Deputy Chief Hanchek said, if approved, it's going to only improve our service to the community, getting the people where they need to be in the department so they can provide the best service to our customers and the citizens of the city is going to be great.
One of the other components for the building reconfiguration is our interview rooms. And it's a very important component in that right now our interview rooms are set up and they're very small. And best practice is not that. It's significantly different. We want to try to avoid a situation where we're putting somebody into a situation where they're going to be wrongfully confessing of something. And then the other part of it is with sensitive crimes. So our interview rooms are not set up where we would like to bring victims of sexual assault, and really sit down with them and understand what had happened to them. So we want to try to reconfigure that so that we're operating in best practice with that. The new parking program, our contract for our T2 parking system is expiring, and we were able to get a one-year extension on that. This next year, we're going to be exploring different options for how we're going to be continuing with that. I'm happy to report that Officer Heinen, our second elementary school resource officer, will be starting in January through some great collaboration with the school district. We're really looking forward to that. Officer Shanky and Officer Heinen will be splitting the school districts, or the elementary schools rather, for coverage.
All right, starting with our expenses for '23, some changes in wages that we're requesting. When our previous traffic liaison clerk retired, that position was separate. Anytime we have change in staffing, it gave us an opportunity to look back and go, okay, how can we improve processes around here? How can we make it better? And something we're experimenting with is not assigning one specific individual to traffic and traffic only. But when this individual is not only doing traffic, she's also a ComTech as well. So she's doing multiple roles. But when she's in that position, we're requesting her wage be $1 more per hour, only when she's in that role. When the previous clerk was in there, of all different steps, it's about $1.50 more per hour. So this isn't anything different than what we were doing before. However, this is an experiment to see if this is the best reallocation of staff moving forward. Next is salaries. Again, as Chief Steka mentioned, with the union contract, the step increases, and then in addition, the fourth SRO position, which 75% is paid by the school district. So that is the increase in salaries for next year. One thing we are requesting is a change in cadet wages. As we mentioned earlier, we have 2 officers in the academy at Fox Valley Tech right now. Currently, we're paying them a cadet wage with no benefits, and that wage was $15 an hour. Our CSOs make $15 an hour. So we need to increase it. And we thought by keeping the cadet wage at $20 an hour. Starting officer with benefits is $28 an hour. So while it's definitely more than a CSO, it's less than the starting officer, and we're not paying benefits. But one trend that we're noticing across the state as well is cadet programs were popular, but with every agency needing officers and stealing officers from other agencies, the cadet programs are going to the wayside, and they're going back to what they used to do 20 years ago and hire them right at step one wages with benefits. Is that something we're going to have to entertain in the future? Probably. Otherwise, they're going to steal our candidates right out of the academy, and that's already happening. So by increasing our next cadet officer wage to 20 is where you'll see the increase. The overtime budget, no increase. However, a few slides to show here the change. From 2012 to 2023, the overtime budget has changed minimally. We have about a 50-50 chance of coming in or under budget and over. So while there's no change this year, again, another topic for future years of we're going to have to change. We would rather predict and be more accurate rather than 50-50, we'll make it or not. And this depends on everything from staffing, critical incidents, and so on and so forth. So as Chief Steichen mentioned earlier, our pay increases have been roughly 27% over the course of these years, but our overtime budget has not changed to mimic the 27%. So moving forward, maybe to have something more parallel, but again, this year, we are keeping it the same as projected for this year. We're looking to come in just a little bit under, but that could change tomorrow if something were to happen. This illustration here shows how our overtime is broken down. The largest section is planned vacancies, meaning we are truly just trying to fill our shifts to maintain minimum staffing. That is the largest portion. A few of the other ones to note is MEG unit overtime, SRO overtime, and grant overtime. All three of those are reimbursed, so we can take that out of the equation. But at the end of the day, just overtime to cover the shifts, to maintain just minimum staffing is where the majority of our overtime is coming from.
So I guess the only thing I'll add to that, because I know this has usually been a topic for the council, is when you look back at the numbers that we had on the previous slide and the expenditures that we actually had on here, I want you to know that this has been something that we have very consciously been working on. So we know in 2012 the wages were 27% less than what they are today, but yet we spent a lot more. What does that tell you? We spent a lot more, there were a lot more hours that were being spent. So I can tell you that our staff here, and really led by Deputy Chief Hanchek on this, have really been cognizant of what ways can we do to try to reduce that burden. So even under the planned and unplanned, there's no way that I can really go back easily to look to see how many hours we had. But anecdotally, we know because the wages were less back then that we were spending more hours on it. There are some things we've done with staffing that we've changed. We have closed the desk now, so that's another place that we don't necessarily man it. We're trying to do some more of the in-service training where we're not sending people away, so you're paying travel costs and things like that. So this is something that our group has been, I think, pretty creative on. But as Deputy Chief Hanchek said, again, this is one of those, I think we pulled a lot of the rabbits out of the hat to maintain the 202-150 going forward, knowing that there's continual pay increases. Probably isn't going to happen. The other thing that's kind of cool on the numbers is, as we mentioned from this slide here, about 20% of this overtime that we spend is actually being reimbursed. We were not getting reimbursed 20% of our overtime budget 10 years ago. So by getting the grants for the MEG unit position and a lot of the overtime he's working, as well as the traffic grants that we have, your net cost is really a fraction of what we were paying in 2012 if you adjusted for inflation and rates going on. So again, we'll be creative with it, but I want you to know that this is something that we have heard you on and are really trying to do what we can to keep the costs as low as we can.
Wages for building services, this is what we had mentioned earlier with the rear parking lot. You saw our budget was 10,000 over, but DPW was 10,000 under. This is the new account right here where you will see it be more accurate. And lastly, health insurance, an increase substantially. This is due to higher enrollment as well as the percentage increase.
Pass it along here. The one thing I will mention on health insurance is, I wasn't at the meeting, but I know that there was the option potentially presented as the buyout. I know it's water under the bridge for this year, but, and I know there's a lot to this issue. I won't be here next year, so I have no problem saying, I think it's something that we should consider. I can tell you that there would have been at least 4 or 5 people in the police department that would have taken a buyout even at a lower level, and we had 2 additional people to sign on to our health insurance. So even if those 5 people would have not taken it, you would have seen a savings of roughly $100,000. So, actually not 100,000 because you would have paid something out to them, so maybe 80,000. So you would have been a net neutral had we gone with that plan for health insurance. I'm not saying you made a bad decision or a wrong decision by any means. It's a complicated thing, and paying something for nothing is how it can be viewed, is a complicated thing. But I think we do need to be creative with it. And I know Kimberly from HR really put a lot of time and effort into looking at that. So she tries to pull something next year as far as an idea or a concept to lower your costs. Understand that she's really trying to do you a solid on it, and maybe that's a way to cut some costs in the future.
So the next couple of sections, dental, that's going to be going up. Mainly our plan is self-funded. That's what's being projected to be needed to cover that. Retirement is going up. Partially the wages are going up, but then also the rate went up. FICA is seeing a decrease. And then the workman's comp is actually going down. Our mod rate went up, but when CIVMIC provided us our estimates, their contributions that we need to make, it went down, so you'll see a decrease in there. And then our HR funding, now with the projected usage and what's being planned for next year, we'll also see a decrease in that account.
The 2106 professional management, every year or every other year we flip-flop. So this upcoming year will be the year where we have a tremendous amount of bartender renewals. So we've increased the budget $500 to ensure we're covering that. The 2204 account, the heat, we had a faulty meter this year, so we're kind of guessing, and we're putting it up $500. The 2403 account, the building account, we're not looking for a change in that. Josh and Brian have really done a tremendous job with maintaining our building, so we're keeping that the same.
Oh yeah, this one's me. So vehicles, this 2904 for vehicles is the maintenance account for a very generalized term. This account, in order to make the budget, we reduced it a little bit more than our initial request. The cost of everything is going up. This is an account that's really been hit hard by that with vehicle maintenance and all of that type of equipment. So we do have a slight increase, but less than we were planning. Computers, the planned IT equipment, we're reducing that. That's a credit to how we've been able to collaborate with IT and put some of our equipment on a schedule to better plan for that. The 3015 account, that's going up slightly. The other equipment account, 3018, will see no change. Our fuel, we're increasing 9,300. Hopefully that'll work for next year if we're able to get a couple more hybrids deployed. Hopefully that will help that account. And then, as we've mentioned before, the vehicles are being moved to borrowing.
Training, no change for the upcoming year, but the trend with everything else, everything is increasing. Our training registrations, just from 1 year ago, almost every course is more expensive. So as we continue to be proactive and train and develop the officers and supervisors. Moving forward, this will be one budget we'll have to reevaluate in order to maintain our level of training. The wellness program, no change again, and as well as the K-9 program, no change. Cami has 1 to 2 years left. Okay, and with the plan and the budgeting, when we do have a new dog and handler, we'll be able to pay for the dog with cash. So we are sitting very well with the K-9 program.
The crossing guard program, we kind of hinted at this earlier in the presentation. We don't have any changes planned for 2022 budgetary wise, but that's going to be a project we're going to have to work on. Recruiting people for this position has been extremely challenging to the point where we barely have minimum staffing. I have the luxury of working day shift, if you want to consider that, and often am tasked with filling the vacancies if we have them. Currently, there are days when there are crossing guards calling in sick or have an illness that we have to fill it with OICs and CSOs and patrol officers. There have been days where there haven't been a single officer on the road because they're required to fill these crossing guard positions. That's a challenge we're going to be looking at doing.
Mayor can do it, can he? He was suggesting I should. But anyways, seriousness here. So they're paid 13, you're proposing 15?
Correct. And the reason we think we can make that fit into the budget is with the closing of Nicolay, that eliminated one position at Racine and Anna. So keeping the budgeted amount the same, but with that reduced, position, we're hoping that we can then increase the pay rate for the rest of them.
Is a CSO officer ever used for that?
Yes, they're the first choice, but if there are multiple vacancies, then we only have one CSO working. Comparatively speaking, so currently we're at 13, hoping to go up to 15. Kaukauna at 15. Oshkosh is anywhere from 16 to 18, and Neenah's also at 15.
I agree with the pay raise, but I just feel like the CSO should be earning more than a crossing guard. So, and I proposed making that change last year to $15, when I think you had what?
14, I think it was 14 is what we initially.
So, all righty, we'll leave it at that, I guess, as long as you made the increase.
The community service officer, we are looking at having a 12-hour coverage for this year. We're still going to retain the $15 an hour as it was increased last year. And it's an excellent part-time program, as you guys all know, where they assist our officers, our sworn officers, on a daily basis, and we want to continue to do that.
Lastly, our auxiliary unit, they currently earn $12.50 an hour and are also out at the same events as well as a CSO. CSOs earn $15 an hour, so we're looking to increase our auxiliary wages to match because they're doing the same job on all of the events. Again, no increase to the budget. With COVID, our unit at the highest was 20 members, and with COVID, we got down to 4. We have a new advisor who's doing a wonderful job, and the numbers are up substantially, and he has so many great ideas that I can't wait to see what he does in 2023. Okay. The question was what percentage of auxiliary officers as well as CSOs turn into patrol officers? I don't have the percentage, but I can say it's very high. We have people in this room who are CSOs. Our newest officer, Sam Vassar, was a CSO. I think half of our roster, almost half of our roster have all either been a CSO with Menasha or other surrounding agencies. Sitting behind us, Lieutenant Lenz also was an auxiliary officer. So great resource, great tool to see how they work, teach them, watch them grow, and when they are great, we have first dibs on them. Another wonderful program.
Jail fees, this year we're looking at a $1,000 decrease, dropping it to $6,500 this year. And it's interesting to note that from a historical sense, we originally started at $17,000 in 2011. Animal fees, we are decreasing that another $500, and $13,000 from the historical sense, we've decreased it $13,000 over the past 7 years. So we continue to decrease that. The other component of that, I guess, which is fairly interesting, is we were currently sitting at about $700 from an expenditure side of things up until a few days ago when we received another bill for $700. So that's up a little bit.
Questions? Thoughts?
I appreciate you coming out this evening and helping educate the public and the council on what you presented. Budgeting is not an easy thing to do, especially this time of year with inflation and fuel costs and everything going up. I give you kudos for staying only 3.6% over your budget from last year. I don't know if you'll be able to maintain that. We'll probably make it up in the salary of the new chief, but I'm just kidding. But I just thank you very much, and I appreciate what you've done here.
Since I have it, with your report, you're very thorough, but one thing I would have appreciated is a printout of those the crime graphs. If we could have that, that'd be a great asset for the public, especially in this day and age where people don't believe you. So if you have it in print, it'd be great.
Yeah, we can certainly get a PDF of the PowerPoint to the group. No problem at all.
We normally put all the PowerPoints on the budget meeting agendas once they're done as well, so it'll live online too if you can't find your printed copy. Anyone else have questions? We got this great team and no one wants to ask questions.
Thank you. 2 or more questions, we'll see. The hybrid vehicles, I'm curious if you are expecting to have the same life expectancy out of them, and then if you have any concerns about the mechanics and maintenance on a hybrid vehicle.
So we haven't yet. I don't anticipate getting any more life out of them. Still the transmission, suspension, all that stuff is still going to have the same issues that we would regardless of what powers it. We'll see. I mean, we've only had them for 2 years and they've only been out for 2 years, so I don't even have any comparative statistics from other agencies just because they're new. But with the current ability to get vehicles, we just may have to keep them longer. We still rotate vehicles from heavy usages, from marked patrol duties to SROs and less used vehicles or less used positions. So some of our cars we're still keeping for 7 to 8 years. Well, I think it's too soon to tell. I know we are turning down our gasoline usage, which is really great. So we'll see.
Great, and I know you keep great data, so we'll look forward to that. And our SROs, SROs and another Geller, I guess. Geller was such an asset for students in the schools and to the community when he was needed. So thoughts on that and how that could happen again in the future?
So having another Geller dog is definitely something that we are expecting to happen. Officer Heinen is very open to that. With him starting in January, we just want to make sure that he has a proper transition to learning some of his new roles and responsibilities. But those are definitely conversations we've had with the school district and researching that.
Thank you.
My dog Scout's always available if you need him. But, can you, the big issue with the overtime in that, and we saw where you talked about the grant overtime, but also too, you have holiday, which is really overtime pay also. So you had shown us the number of like 200,000, but then I'm looking at holiday too, which is 146, and then the grant, is the grant also in the 202, or is the grant on top of it?
The grant is included in the 202,
Okay.
so technically about 170 is what we'll pay in non-funded overtime this year. And yeah, the holiday pay it's not only the time for people that work on those days, but just as we have it, I think citywide, right? Or does other departments have a holiday or no? Just us? Okay. So across the board, those that are working, they get, or that are not working, they get the day off. That's where the pay comes from them on that day as well, if I recall correctly. Where the other ones are wrapped into wages. So yes, those that are working on a holiday, that was where we'll get paid out of. If there is someone that actually is working overtime on a holiday, that would come out of holiday, that category as well. So there is, I guess, technically some overtime there too. Yeah.
I knew that, but I just want people to see
You bet.
that it isn't just 202, there's also holiday pay in there.
Which some is overtime and some isn't. Yep.
I just wanted to thank all of you for a really thorough report. As a new council member, really meant a lot, but I also really appreciate how proactive your police department is rather than reactive when it comes to social equity and social justice, and just having a real presence in schools and out in our community. I love hearing about teaming up with congregations in our faith communities here in the neighborhood, or in the community, to kind of build those bridges. And I guess just a quick question that I have is, you had made mention, and I think Alderman Severnick had made a comment of this, but you're looking to potentially raise crossing guard wage to $15 an hour because of one less position. Is there, are you looking at raising the wages for other positions like in the future? Like CSO? Okay, I didn't have that context, so thank you. Never mind, he answered my question, thank you.
In this budget, no. Put it that way. Crystal ball otherwise, we'll have to see.
Once we get to HR, we'll have a little bit more discussion on that as well. Anyone else have any questions?
Questions for overtime, Chief. When we have like some of those, like the Halloween get-together we had last week, and the gather round and the hayride and those different things that we sponsor for the city, and we have the police officers there. Are those officers, we have the regular set of officers that are working that day, and then do we call in extra officers to be present for those things with overtime pay, or how is that construed?
Yep, generally speaking, no. The only caveat that I'll give to that would be 4th of July, because we do have afternoons that stays over and nights that comes in, just because of it's 4th, and the call volume and all the issues. But in something like Gather Around, what you saw, or Downtown Halloween this past week, that was myself and Lieutenant Thorne, who, he doesn't get overtime. We had afternoon shift down there. We had our new investigator, Vicki Strabel, who volunteered her time to be down there. So we do encourage folks to participate in those kinds of things, but it doesn't fall under the overtime benefit. But, and if they're working shift and don't have a call, certainly they're encouraged to participate in events like that.
Okay, thank you very much. Hopefully you can have a board up in the police station, volunteer hours, and have a list of the police officers, and maybe even have a pizza party for the top 3 or 4 that give more volunteer hours over the year, and make that a point of emphasis to celebrate and encourage more volunteer hours as much as we can. That would be great. Thank you. Yep.
With that, it appears that we have no more questions. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. We appreciate seeing you and the great discussion this evening. So with that, do we want to break now, or do we want to break after Mayor Council? Okay. We'll break for a couple minutes. Okay, we are at letter G, the Mayor and the Common Council. There are 3 budgets here, and I didn't make a fancy spreadsheet on this one. The mayor's budget is basically the same as previous years. The only real changes are for wages, healthcare, and things like that in the mayor's office. The electronics recycling event's slightly more expensive, but really it's a status quo budget. Anyone have questions on the mayor's budget? The Common Council budget, the only difference in the Common Council budget is the increase in wages. And because we've been doing so good with fast council meetings, I took $500 off the recording. But other than that, it's the same amount. Anything on Common Council that anyone wants to talk about? And then civic commemorations, you'll notice on your budget book that it shows the mayor's budget actually being way over in 2021, and that was actually from the fundraising. That's the mayor and civic commemorations combined. And that was from your fundraising for holiday lights. That's why that budget shows it being way over on your graph there, that little red box on top of it. The civic commemorations budget is basically the same as always as well. That's for the parades and the fireworks. We do not have a quote for fireworks yet at this point, so I'm hoping that they didn't come in dramatically more expensive. We might be 5 minutes shorter this year, but the civic commemorations budget is pretty much the same as always as well. Any questions on any of those? So we have, Gather Round, the Hometown Halloween, and the parades. Yeah. So we did leave $3,000 in there for Gather Round. We do have a City Hall Christmas tree for Gather Round this year because someone wanted an even number on either side of the marina, so they bought an extra one. So there were 8 on each side, I believe. So. Yeah. I don't know, we were told 15. And they had wanted an even 8 on both sides, so he bought 16. So we will decorate one at City Hall as well. And that is all I have for those 3 budgets. Virtually no change in any of them. I believe that Maggie has a presentation for hers. Does it say no signal?
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, just talk louder. I will make this as brief as I can. Going through these three budgets. All right, attorney, human resources, and lastly, clerk and elections. As you saw from the mayor's slideshow, we have goals for each budget. The attorney's goal, one of the many that I have, is to implement Westlaw, and you'll see that later on. Along with the clerk, the attorney, we'd like to recodify the code, get it into an electronic format. And lastly, human resources. We'd like to do a comprehensive salary study and hire a consultant to do that. So first, I'd like to direct your attention to the attorney budget. So starting page 184 of the budget book. And in terms of an overview, again, similar to the mayor's budget, I think you'll find this to be as you expected it to be. I don't have any big surprises for you. Like other departments this year, you'll see a cost of living adjustment, along with that fairly significant increase in insurances, both health and property. And as expected, you'll also see decreased wages, so temp help dropped to $0, and that was interim attorney Jim Walsh. You'll also see that apart from wages and salary and health, the largest item pertains to legal services. So in the event that outside counsel is needed for any type of conflict, or somebody needs to fill in the event that we need some specialized expertise, as you can expect with my background and experience in this position, I'm asking for more than what we asked for last year. And I would start with saying, if Pam asked for 5 or got 5, I thought, okay, 15 might be a safe bet. And from there, the mayor reduced that to 10. So, yes, $10,000 is approximately 35 hours at a rate of about $285 per hour. So that's an average rate for outside counsel, someone who would specialize in something that we might need. I'd like to move on now to page 187, periodicals and subscriptions. You'll see that I've asked for an increase from $1,500 to $3,000 there. And again, as it relates to one of my goals for 2023, I'd like to implement Westlaw into the city attorney's office. And so what is it? It's an online legal research service and proprietary database for lawyers, legal professionals. So think of it as, a Google for lawyers. You can search terms and access case law, make sure the case that you are citing in your briefs or arguments are accurate, are valid. In addition to case law, it has statutes, regulations, administrative decisions, making sure that what I'm using, what I'm advising, is still good law. It also identifies the most negative treatment of case law and allows you to see how other sources have interpreted the legal documents. So statutes, it can compare those, and regulations, it can compare the current statutes or regulations with the previous version. I understand I'm probably boring you with all the stuff that I get excited about, but it can really, it can increase the legal research efficiency so that I can better advise staff, common counsel as well, and protect the city, represent and protect the city. So I looked at Westlaw, which is what I had used while I was at the DA's office over the past 7+ years. And it's user-friendly. It's also less expensive than LexisNexis. You've probably heard of other competitors, so LexisNexis, Westlaw Next, and Bloomberg Law. Those are probably the three biggest competitors for the legal research. And any of the three would be great, but Westlaw Next is the least expensive between Westlaw Next and LexisNexis, and Bloomberg Law, unfortunately, I could not access that. So our security is good here if I couldn't get into the Bloomberg Law website. And this is just an example of what Westlaw Next can do. So if you look at the top of the screen, just to the right of Westlaw Next, you can see that search term, tree branch across property line. And right next to that is all state and federal. And you can see in the main body portion, just a blurb of what the case is. So looking at James v. Wagner, that's a yellow flag, which means there's some negative treatment, but trespass, so adjoining landowners could use self-remedy of trimming branches and limbs and encroaching trees without risk of liability and damages to doing so. So this is an example of a case that I could potentially use in a matter, in future litigation. And along the left hand of the screen, it shows, again, what the search, how you can limit it, how you can increase or decrease the scope of your search and whatnot. So, yes. According to that, well, unfortunately, I don't have Westlaw yet, so I could not access that case to be able to look into that. But I can sure do that for you. Absolutely. Thank you. And I think that's it for the attorney budget. So moving on to human resources, beginning on page 189. So in terms of an overview, obviously the salary study jumps out. We're requesting $30,000 for a salary study. But I would like to start from the top on page 190. Again, like other departments, this year we see a 4% cost of living adjustment reflected in wages along with an increase of insurances. And looking at briefly medical and management, medical, so this reflects the EAP, so the Employee Assistance Program contract with Theta, and it's a benefit, it is being used by staff, and it's absolutely necessary. Management, this reflects the costs for drug tests, so pre-employment, but also those DOT required drug tests. Moving on to wellness. We're proposing $4,000 this year, and it is an increase from the $3,000. So why the increase? This year was the 25th anniversary appreciation lunch. And in speaking with Kimberly, it was an overwhelming success. We'd like to continue to do that next year. And in addition to that appreciation lunch, we'd like to host wellness events. As Deputy Chief Hanchek was talking, financial wellness, physical wellness, mental wellness, and intellectual wellness. We'd like to have classes for our staff provided at no cost to our staff. We'd also like to keep it fun, so workplace competitions, celebrations, and team building activities. And this all goes to a goal of retaining our qualified employees. So Moving on to salary study then. What is a salary study? Again, it's a tool that helps determine a fair and competitive pay scale for employees. I was talking to the mayor this morning and learned that Menasha has had a salary study done in the past, but it was over 20 years ago. So why should we do this? As you can see, we want to retain employees, promote individual success, increase overall value due to the city or to the city, and promote a safe and healthy workplace. And again, speaking with Kimberly yesterday, our HR manager, I learned that this year Menasha lost 12 full-time employees, and meanwhile, there were 14 full-time hires, 8 part-time permanent hires, and 6 internal movements and promotions. So she's been busy. There's been a lot of turnover this year, so focusing on retaining employees, reducing turnover, and reorganizing, maybe restructuring of our pay step and schedule. One thing that Kimberly did talk about was that there are many exceptions, so some employees aren't even on a schedule. There's really no increase on merit, and a rock star employee maybe would not have the opportunity to earn more, and so it's solely based on longevity. So looking at, are we where we should be, and how, if we're not, how can we and how should we change? Yes. So Alderman Nichols asked if a salary study also examined benefits. I don't believe it does. That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. Yeah, you would think that it should, and in a comprehensive salary study, the outside group would interview staff. You would assume that it would ask about, other benefits as well, not only salary.
The one that we did for utilities did have some of that type of situation. It was more the benefits end, health insurance, vacation, things like that, not so much of the creative, flexible type things. So we should talk about that. But I think, I forget the acronym, our health insurance people, Carlson, what are they called? Help me out, Kimberly. Carlson Detman? No, not them, our insurance people. Cottingham and Butler had some information for us a couple times about common benefits and common workplace practices as well. So I think that's something we'd want to include in any type of a salary study that they would do. When we did it for the utilities, they also asked us if we wanted to be on a merit-based system or if we wanted to be on a longevity-based system. And there's some benefits to both. And I believe the first time we did it, they gave us both. And here's a couple different ways that you could do that. So.
Yes, that's a very good point. One benefit that we do have in considering a salary study is that many communities around us, so Neenah, Appleton, De Pere, Kaukauna, Village of Fox Crossing, completed salary studies in 2022, so this year for next year. It gives us a chance to see, what actual changes those communities will make, and how that will affect, recruitment, retention. So it's about data as well, I think. Reliable, trusted, and dependable data, and that looks at every aspect of the position, qualifications, requirements, actual job duties to match that person's position accurately. That's a good question. And I believe it would only encompass employees at City Hall. All non-union employees. Thank you. That's a good question too. And that's also a good question. So why don't we just do it in-house, and I'll address that first. I believe we did try to do that beginning in 2019, and you're absolutely right. Pam put a lot of work into that, and as well as the mayor, but it's 2022 now, the end of 22, coming up to 2023. We still don't have a comprehensive salary study, and the data that was collected in 2019, 2020, may not be beneficial to 2023 and beyond. To address your question, Alderman Semenik, why can't we just look at other cities? And we can look at those salary studies, and that's a benefit of having them available to us. But also, it doesn't look at, sometimes we have positions that don't exactly line up from community to community. So the mayor was telling me this morning, Todd Drew, health director, has maybe 5 different responsibilities. And how can you compare that position with 5 separate jobs or descriptions to a health director in a different community that only does health directing and has no sanitarian duties or whatnot. So I agree it's absolutely beneficial to look at those other community studies, but it would also at the same time be beneficial to have somebody come in and interview each employee, look at what that employee does, and if they can be compared to a surrounding community. You know, a similar position in a surrounding community, excuse me. You know, what do they do? Do they do similar tasks? Do they do more? Do they do less? And how does that compare to our community?
I think one of the reasons that it's important to have someone else do it rather than us is it gets rid of the favoritism. We all like employee A, and employee A does a wonderful job, so therefore employee A should get more money, even though employee B probably is the one that's underpaid, but we don't tend to like employee B that well, or employee B doesn't sit in front of us all the time. So the way that they've done these in the past is they look at the responsibilities for each person and their role, and they give that person a grade. Basically, they assign points to each of the tasks that they do, the responsibilities they have, the danger of their job, all that kind of stuff. And then people that have 90 points go in category A, people that have 88 points go in category B, and that's how they create the salary schedule then in the future, rather than, oh, we all like Joe, and Joe should probably get more money, just because we all like him. And that's when I started looking at what Pam was working on. It's great to look at the job title, but the job title doesn't necessarily tell you what they're doing. So unless I actually go to those 7 different communities that I looked at and actually find out exactly what those people do in 7 different communities, I don't really know if I'm looking at the same job. It would be very difficult for us to do it here. Could we do it here? Probably. It would probably take a whole year, though, to get it done. And I think there'd be a lot of favoritism in it as well. And I don't think we'd be willing to tell some people that they might be paid too much. And that did happen at utilities, and those people got froze. But I don't think any one of the 9 of us would be willing to look someone in the eye and say, you know, I just don't think that you should get paid less because of what we found in Appleton and Neenah. So I think when you have an outside consultant, they have that credibility that they've done hundreds of these, and this is what you should be paid. So I think that we probably should write some sort of RFP, and we should probably bring that before the personnel committee, though, and make sure that we're getting the information that the Common Council wants when we do this. So this isn't something that tomorrow, January 1st, we're just going to do it. I think there'll be a process through personnel committee to get it done too. And if by mid-year we decide we don't want to do it, so be it. We don't need to spend the money, but I think it's important to leave it in the budget.
Thank you. And just wrapping up with the salary study, looking at one company, Carlson Detman Consulting, they provided us with a $30,000 proposal, and that's based on the number of individuals. It would be a 6-month process, and they would not be able to begin until March 2023. Yes, so the mayor had just indicated we would look at changes for the 2024 budget. And lastly but not least is the city clerk and elections budget, which begins on page 193. And again, as with other departments, you'll see that the cost of living adjustment is built in along with that fairly significant increase in insurance. In terms of highlights, you'll see that the large postage increase in the clerk's budget on page 196, that accounts for absentee ballots. So Clerk Kramer informed me just this morning that the city has mailed out 1,300 absentee ballots for this election. And moving on to page 197 elections, you'll see a large increase in wages, temp help, decrease. And that's because there are only 2 elections next year. So you'll see that the cost will be significantly lower. And that also decreases the need for vending and catering from 1,500 to 0, because that would not be necessary with only 2 elections. And next is the goal of municipal code recodification. So if you'll return to page 197, you'll see other equipment. It is a new item, and $15,000 is proposed. So what is it? Codification, our code has been codified. Gathering rules or laws to create a logical code. We would be looking at recodification, and our code has been recodified, so recodification, maybe. A complete legal review of our code to ensure that it's grammatically correct, free of conflicts and internal inconsistencies, and that it conforms to state law. So why do this? A code that's well arranged, well edited, easy to read, easy to navigate, and up to date is cost effective. It's a cost effective management tool for government. It increases efficiency among staff. It also increases transparency for citizens. So some other benefits, it eliminates many tasks that are a strain on staff members. It enables citizens to have free, open, and ready access to the law. And that's already available to our community on the website. But this online version of the code that I'll show you, it's integrated with a search engine and other tools that make using the information easier. Let's see. That's right. Yes, that's right. So there are 2 different companies that we are looking at, and there are proposals that have been provided, and the proposal is a one-time fee. The annual cost would be a maintenance fee. And so cities, communities that have Muni code, Neenah and Little Chute, and general code, Fox Crossing, Sherwood, Winneconne, and Grand Chute. And I'd just like to show you an example of each of So here's our code, and as you can see, the community, staff, everybody can access this via PDFs. It's a little bit difficult to navigate in terms of opening up different, toggling through different titles and different sections, different chapters, different documents. The Control F feature, searching documents, you can't really do that here throughout our code. Looking at Neenah, they have Muni code. I sat through a presentation on this yesterday, and it just blew my mind, the different features, search features. But I just want to do one thing, which is show you in general, this is, again, it's the code, it's online, accessible. You can email, you can share it through a link, you can save and request notifications when anything updates. You can, and this is just an example that I'll use, searching chicken. It brings up, it's so smart that it also would show fowls. It can catch fowl. But it shows each and every section of the code that contains that search term and something like it. similar to Muni code search terms. It's also very smart and contains the code, again, in an electronic form. It's not as smart because it would not pick up foul. But still, it's pretty incredible what the software can do, how it can track changes, how the new ordinances can be added instantaneously within 24 hours. So Mayor had requested that I type in chickens to our city code. And yes, a whole bunch of website hits, but how can I search the code? So again, benefits of reviewing the code, finding any inconsistencies, ensuring that we are consistent with state law, and easily accessible for staff, the community, constituents. Yes. Yes, and that's the most, it's the best way to put it. It allows for the supplementing. It does it all for you. And 4 times a year, it supplements the code, it adds, it reviews, and general code does a little bit differently. And they also charge 18 cents per page of ordinance, new ordinance. So apart from that annual cost, there is that extra 18 cents per page. Yes. We are responsible for letting them know what is updated. No. What I hope will happen is, because so many staff members will use the program, they should have a say in it as well. I'd like to do, tutorial videos for each of the different softwares, talk through the benefits, the pros, the cons, essentially, and then, yes, likely come back before Common Council. Thank you, Randy. That would go to our deputy clerk, Val Newman, for the wages. And for the salaries, that's also part of Haley's duties as clerk, so the salaries would go to Haley. That's right, yep.
Yes, so the UW campus is within one of those districts there, and we just decided that it might be too much with redistricting to make the change at that time, and the school district did allow us to use Clovis for one more election. The mayor and I did have an opportunity to visit with staff at the university, and they informed us that they could reserve part of the parking lot for voters to park that day. They do have plenty of room behind the theater there. That's where we'll direct voters kind of up that side street by Sabre Lanes, and they'll enter through that direction. Five and seven. At the Winnegaming Dog Club is District 6 and 8.
Oh, did you have something on the dental? So self-funded dental is our dental insurance, and we contract through Delta Dental. And the portion that the employees don't pay is the self-funded dental plan. And I believe that we still have a surplus in that account, but that surplus is dwindling. So there's a slight increase, and I don't remember what that is. It's like $1 a paycheck for most people. It's a fairly small increase this year. Were there two here that we missed? And that was the salary study. And property insurance there was a fairly significant increase in property insurance costs, as well as we had a couple claims that emptied our reserve. So we're building up that reserve again for claims, as well as the increase in cost for property insurance. So that's why that one went up slightly. There is nothing on municipal court, and Maggie and I did talk about municipal court, that it's been running a deficit for years, and it's something that we've talked about for a number of years. So hopefully she'll have some brilliant ideas in the next year to help working on that. But the 3,700-ish that's in there is to rent the facility that we hold the court in, is what that's for, and I think some of the office space as well. But the operations are supposed to be covered by the tickets, and they haven't been covered. So, yeah. We would like 4 to 5 hour meetings like you have at the county, actually. No? Oh, okay. There's nothing else that anyone has questions for HR or the attorney. I think she'll be here the next few nights as well, but I would accept a motion to adjourn unless anyone else has other questions. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thank you.
The University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh Fox Cities campus assists the city of Menasha with video recordings of city meetings. Menasha residents and interested parties can get information about city meetings, meeting agendas, and other documents from the city website, www.cityofmenasha.org. wi.gov. To express opinions about City of Menasha issues or these broadcasts, contact the Mayor's office, 920-967-3608. Contact a City Alderman. Contact information appears on the website. Or complete the electronic feedback form on the City website. All public portions of the meetings are recorded in entirety and are not edited.